Hi, I'm Sophia. If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. with your mind racing through problems that felt completely manageable just hours before, this video will explain exactly why that happens and what you can do about it. Let's dive in. You go to bed exhausted, fall asleep easily, and then, without warning, your eyes snap open. You are inexplicably fully awake in the middle of a quiet room. Before you even have a chance to shift under the covers, your mind is sprinting. You start replaying a mildly awkward conversation from Tuesday, running through tomorrow's schedule, and calculating problems that didn't even seem urgent 12 hours ago. So you check the time. 3:14 a.m. You do the mental math on how few hours of rest you have left, squeeze your eyes shut, and try to force yourself back to sleep, which predictably only makes your brain drastically more alert. Lying there staring at the ceiling, it is incredibly easy to assume that something is deeply wrong with you. You start to worry that your internal clock is permanently broken, or that your sleep system has simply stopped working. But your body is not malfunctioning. What you are experiencing is a perfectly calibrated biological system executing a highly specific response. It is just happening at the exact wrong time. Take a look at this timeline, charting a normal night of rest. Sleep is not a continuous flatline. It operates in 90-minute cycles. Early in the night, you plunge into deep restorative states. But as the night progresses, these waves become shallower. By the time we hit the 3 a.m. mark, the heavy lifting of deep sleep is largely finished. You are naturally operating in a fragile, much lighter stage of sleep, hovering precariously close to baseline wakefulness. In this zone, even tiny disruptions hit much harder. Right around this same time, your internal clock begins shifting, thanks to cortisol. We usually hear about cortisol as a stress hormone, but it also serves a second function as your body's built-in morning alarm clock. A healthy system produces a smooth, gradual cortisol curve to gently wake you by sunrise. But if you carry an elevated level of baseline stress from your day, that chemical release spikes prematurely, hitting intense levels way too early. When that early chemical spike hits your nervous system, the result is physical. You experience a violent pull out of that fragile light sleep cycle, landing immediately in a state of high physical alert. Waking up at this specific hour is the unavoidable mathematical collision of a highly vulnerable light sleep cycle meeting an overloaded stress system. That explains the physical wake-up, but it leaves a massive psychological mystery. Why do minor, highly manageable daytime concerns suddenly morph into overwhelming, catastrophic crises at 3 in the morning? During your waking hours, a region of your brain called the prefrontal cortex actively regulates your emotions. It provides context, filters out irrational fears, and keeps your daily anxieties in a reasonable perspective. But at night, the frontal lobe, your rational regulatory center, is essentially powered down. Meanwhile, the deeper emotional processing centers remain brightly lit, highly active, and entirely unchecked. Add to that the environment. Lying in a dark, quiet room removes all external sensory inputs. There are no sounds, tasks, or screens to distract you, which hands those unchecked emotional anxieties a massive megaphone. A disabled rational filter operating inside a completely distraction-free environment creates a perfect biological echo chamber. Under these specific conditions, it is physically impossible to simply command your thoughts to turn off. Since you cannot just flip a mental switch, surviving a 3 a.m. wake-up requires a strict, counterintuitive physical approach. Your objective is not to force yourself back to sleep. Your objective is to intentionally reduce your physical arousal. First, keep the room as dark as possible. Turning on a bright light acts as a final biological trigger, explicitly signaling to your brain that the waking process is fully complete and the day has officially begun. Second, absolutely ignore the clock. Mentally calculating how much rest you are losing directly triggers further stress, prompting your body to release another dose of cortisol that will keep you awake longer. Finally, use the 20-minute rule. If sleep doesn't return quickly, you have to physically leave the bed and sit quietly in a dim room. This action prevents your brain from permanently associating your mattress with anxiety and alertness. Treating the midnight wake-up with calm, boring neutrality is the only way to prevent a temporary physiological interruption from cementing into a chronic loop of insomnia. But mastering the 3 a.m. triage protocol is just damage control. To solve nighttime sleep disruption entirely, we have to shift our focus away from the middle of the night and onto the middle of the day, a phenomenon we can call the daytime echo. We routinely expose our brains to constant stimulation, heavy mental workloads, and unresolved emotional friction from the second we wake up. The human brain cannot actually process all of that incoming data in real time as it occurs. That unprocessed cognitive load is simply deferred. It sits in the background, waiting until your brain is finally free of distractions, preparing to ambush you the very moment your sleep cycle lightens. Clearing this load requires a preventative daytime protocol. You must stabilize your sleep schedule to anchor your internal clock. You need an enforced evening wind down to limit new incoming data. And you need a dedicated quiet time to actively process your stress before the sun goes down. A 3 a.m. wake-up is not a biological failure. It is actually a highly effective signal, demanding you balance the cognitive load of your waking hours. If you process your stress during the day, the night will take care of itself. If this helped you understand your sleep better, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you want more videos breaking down how your body actually works, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.